up, you guys? If you're new here, hello, my name is Brittany, and in today's video we're probably looking a little bit different. We're in the process of changing up the hair a little bit, so don't mind that too much. But in today's video I wanted to do a get ready with me slash kind of first impressions on a couple new things that I picked up recently. So in my last giveaway I asked you guys just products that you guys were genuinely interested in the most, and a lot of you guys said the Anastasia Beverly Hills Sultry palette, and then a lot of people also said the Too Faced Gingerbread Spice palette. So in today's video we're going to focus on the Anastasia Beverly Hills Sultry palette, but if you guys want to see another one of these with the gingerbread palette, just let me know. So again, this is what we're going to focus on today. So this is the eyeshadows that I'm going to be using, and can we just talk about the packaging really quick? Like, it's so fucking beautiful. So very excited to try this out. And then I also picked up a couple lip products. I picked up the Fenty Beauty by Rihanna Stunna lip paint in the shade Uncuffed. I've actually used this once already and I wasn't really crazy about the applicator, but I feel like it's just because I'm not really used to it. So we're going to try this again today. And then I also picked up the Marc Jacobs Enamored High Shine Gloss Lip Lacquer in the shade Shine a Light. This is the Holiday Lip Gloss. So I'm curious to see these two on top of each other, but I've seen so many people use this and it looks gorgeous. So very excited to try these out. And then this next thing, if you guys are returning to my channel, you know I'm obsessed with Hourglass everything, so this is probably no surprise at all, but I picked up the Ambient Lighting Edit Volume 4 palette from Hourglass. So I actually posted about this on my Insta story. By the way, if you're not following me on Instagram, what the fuck are you doing? But you guys actually voted for this one versus the Ambient Edit palette, so I'm going to try this one out first, see if I really like them being in a palette form, because I already know that I love the Hourglass singles, but I'm curious to see if I like it as much in a palette form. So very excited to try this out again. And then another very exciting thing is I actually picked up some new brushes. So funny story really quick. This buildable cheek brush, these are the Smashbox brushes, the camera ready brushes. This buildable cheek brush, I thought I ordered this like a month ago, and I'm sitting here waiting. I'm like, why hasn't that brush come yet? And I never ordered it. And then luckily for me, these actually came up half off on the Macys website during their like 10 days of glam. So I picked up the buildable cheek brush, the precise highlighting brush, the angled powder brush, and the sheer powder brush. I figured the sheer powder brush would be really nice to use with that Hourglass palette. So very excited to try these out. I've been saying for a little bit that I'm kind of like over the brushes that I currently have at the moment. So I'm kind of curious to like branch out and see if I like these new brushes. So I am the first person to admit that I don't really love first impressions videos. That's just my personal preference because I feel like they can be very misleading, but I am here for you guys and I know you guys love them. So I wanted to kind of incorporate some new products. I don't want to get into like full face first impressions unless that's something you guys really want to see. I'm just going to tell you guys, take what I say with a grain of salt, because there's sometimes I use products I initially don't like them and then I end up loving them. There's some that I end up loving them and then end up hating. It's just always like a process for me with makeup. So there are some times that I can use a product once and fall in love with it, don't get me wrong, but I feel like first impressions are a nice like look into the product, but I wouldn't say it's necessarily like a review. Like a review, I like to go a lot more in depth. I like to use them a lot more than one time. So just take what I say with a grain of salt. Let me know if you guys like these, and let's just dive right into this first impression. Alright, so today we're going to start with the eyes because I'm not sure about the fallout situation on the Anastasia palette. So I'm going to go in and prime my eyes first. I'm just using my Too Faced Born This Way concealer. This is going to be the shade Vanilla. I recently picked this one up because I'm getting a little bit lighter than I was, and the shade Natural Beige was just getting a little bit too dark for me. I feel like this one's a little bit more yellow than I would typically like. I wanted something a little bit more neutral, which I'm sure they have the shade, but this one definitely works for me, and I like that it gives me a little bit like more brightening. So I just picked this up mainly because Ulta had 5 times the points on Too Faced, so that's the main reason that I picked this up, and the Gingerbread Spice palette. So just blending this out, and then we'll go into the Sultry palette. So I'm just going to take the shade Fresh and just set my entire lid space, basically my whole eye. Everywhere that I put concealer, that's where I'm going to put the shade. This is just a really nice bone color shade, very nice for just setting the lid. I always like when palettes have a shade like this because I always set my entire lid, because I do usually apply like a lid primer or a concealer. So I'm just really applying this just all over the place, and it's just a really nice, I would say, brightening powder. Like, it gives me a little bit of color but not too much. So now I'm going to take the shade Birch. It's just more of like a camel tan-ish color, and I'm just going to focus this right in my crease area. And by the way, I'm using my Morphe M441 brush. I feel like this is applying really nicely. Like, it blends out really nice, very easily. It's just applying like a normal eyeshadow, at least a normal like Anastasia shadow for me. So this shade is definitely a good one, at least so far so good. Yeah, like the blend is super pretty with this, and I feel like the shades actually look on my eye like they do on the pan. That's one thing that I really didn't like about the Norvina palette, was when I would apply the shades to my eyes, they didn't look anything like they do in the eyeshadow palette. So shade Birch is good and the shade Fresh is good for me so far. So now I'm going to take my Morphe R39 brush and I'm going to dip in the shade Bloom. This is like just calling me. I feel like that's where a lot of people were gravitated towards this palette because of this shade. And I'm just going to focus it a little bit lower in my crease area. The shade's very pigmented. Like, you barely have to dip into these powders. I'm usually very cautious with Anastasia powders because they are usually pretty powdery. I don't feel like the kick up is as bad on this palette so far, at least in the shades that I've gone into so far. Usually you dip your brush in these and they kick up horribly, but this one, it's not bad at all. And you can see, these are applying really, really nicely so far. All right, so the shade Bloom, my first impression of it is it applies really nice. It's blending out super easy. They're not getting that weird like patchiness in them. They're just blending out and applying really, really nicely. They're definitely pigmented. Like, you can see the pigmentation for sure. All right, now I want to take the shade Dystopian, I think. I'm going to take this on my Morphe E17 brush. Yeah, the kick up on this is not as bad at all compared to their other palettes. Like, some of their palettes kick up so bad. And I'm just going to apply this right to the outer corner. This is pulling very like almost black, but it's not quite black. It's like an espresso brown, I would say. This is just like my classic type of look, like dark outer corner, kind of a fun or neutral crease area, and then like a shimmery center of my lid, and that's always the look that I do. So this is applying very pigmented. The kick up in the pan is not bad at all, if any. Like, this doesn't really have any kick up. I don't know if you guys are gonna be able to see it, but there's really no kick up or fallout, so that is really exciting. And then I'm just going to dust off my brush. I want to dip into like as many shades as I can. So now I'm going to go into the shade Twig. This one has a little bit more fallout than the shade Dystopian. And then I just want to add a little bit of that shade right in here. I'm just kind of like lightly fluffing it to help blend out that really harsh edge. Then I'm going to do the same thing right on the top as well. All right, so that blended out super easy, not getting any weird patchiness or anything like that. I always get a little bit of patchiness on this eye right in like my crease area. So if I have that, it's not because of the shadows. It's just because it's like my eye does not like to take the pigment for some weird reason. So I always make sure that I focus a little bit more of the powder in that area. But I'm not getting like any weird blending or anything like that. I feel like everything's applying really true to color. So now I want to dip more into that shade Bloom and just add a little bit more because I'm really liking this shade especially. So I want to add a little bit more into the crease and just see if anything like blends away or anything like that. Not getting any weird blending doing that. I'm going to dip back into the shade Birch with that Morphe M441. I'm just kind of building up the color that I might have lost in the initial beginning. I feel like Birch is starting to get a little bit more cool tone than it looks in the palette. So I don't really love that because it looks fairly warm in the palette. I keep losing that pigment on the shade Bloom though. Like, anytime I blend over, which is normal if you continuously blend and blend and blend over, but I feel like it does it pretty easily. So now I'm going to take my Alamar brush. I got this in my BoxyCharm. I've been obsessed with this ever since I got it. So now I want to take the shade Rose Quartz. It's just like this pretty like rose gold, like champagne-ish color. I would say it's more rose gold. We're going to apply that right in this area here. No Fix Plus, no anything. This is just dry. I was going to cut the crease, but I want you guys to be able to see what it looks like without using any of that. So I'm just going to apply this right on the center. I don't think it really shows up the best. Like that ColourPop Thingabob shadow that I used in my last tutorial, that you didn't need any Fix Plus or anything. I feel like I want to use my finger with this, so let's see how it applies with the finger. Like, it definitely picks up better on your finger. And it applies a lot better with your finger as well. So I would say use your finger, or if you use a brush, probably use like Fix Plus or something. And then I also want to take the shade Pearl. This is more of just like a pearly white metallic. So now I'm going to take that. I'm going to try that Alamar brush again. And then focus this right on the inner corner. And that's picking up like nothing with a brush. I still feel like your finger is going to be the way to apply these, because you have to use kind of a lot of product on a brush to get it to even remotely show up. For their metallics, I feel like a finger always applies them better. Yeah, like that's way nicer with a finger. So I would encourage you guys to use your finger when applying these metallic shades, but they're beautiful. Like, they're super beautiful shades. I just know a lot of people don't really love using their fingers for these types of shadows. I personally like it, but I know a lot of people don't. So now I'm going to take the shade Dystopian again, and I'm going to mix it a little bit with Twig so it's not as intense. And then I want to deepen up this outer corner just a little bit more. Alright, I want to go back into the shade Bloom, but I'm going to take my Morphe M441. I'm really losing that pink that I really liked, so I want to get more of like a wash on the top here to kind of get rid of that shade because I don't really love how that pulled. Let me take the shade Rose Quartz again, focus this right on the center of my lid, take more of that shade Pearl on the inner corner. I'm kind of getting the vibe that I did with the Norvina palette, like the more shades that you add together, the less I like it type of deal. Normally I could add and layer a bunch of different shades and it doesn't really like get mixed together. Like, I feel like these shades are really mixing and I'm not really loving it. I feel like the metallics especially like really lose their metallicness. So let me take some Fix Plus. I was really impressed with this palette when I started using it, and now I'm not really quite sure how I'm really liking it. So let me take more of that Rose Quartz shade. I feel like when you apply these wet, they almost get like too chunky, because I feel like that's what's happening. Like right here, you can see where there's like a chunk of that metallicness. Alright, I think that's what I'm going to call it for my lids. The metallics aren't really doing it for me. I feel like the mattes blend out really nice. I feel like the more that you layer them though, they kind of like get like not muddy, but they kind of like run together, which I guess is normal if you're layering a bunch of shadows. I'm just trying to use as many as I can. So I really like the mattes. It's just the metallics aren't really doing it for me. Like, if you looked at my last video, you saw that shade Thingamabobb from the ColourPop palette. That was like boom in your face, like you noticed it without any Fix Plus or anything. I feel like these ones just aren't really like hitting the mark for me, especially for Anastasia shimmers. But that's exactly how I felt with the Norvina palette as well. So I want to keep playing with this more, but my first impression is I really like the mattes. I think they blend out really nice. I don't get that weird like patchiness or anything, especially when you layer. Like, I feel like they blend and layer really nicely. It's just the metallics. And being that this is like a 50-50 palette, like it's half mattes and half metallics, I don't know if that's really worth it, but that's by judging it by the shades Pearl and Rose Quartz. So the shades that I used were Fresh, Pearl, Rose Quartz, Birch, Twig, Dystopian, and that's it. So my initial first impressions of the metallics isn't really the best, but I'm going to continue to go throughout my makeup and see if everything kind of pulls together at the end. I also wanted to add the fallout. I don't really get any fallout other than this metallic shade right here. Like you can see, I got it right on the lower part of my eye, but the darker shades, the pink, any of the mattes did not get any fallout anywhere on my face, so that is a good sign, because usually with Anastasia palettes I do get the fallout. But I want to swatch this really quick. This is the ColourPop times Disney eyeshadow palette. I'm really curious about the shade Thingamabobb because this is like the standout shade in this palette in my opinion. I want to swatch this one, so we'll give this one a swatch really quick. It's just so smooth and so nice. I love this eyeshadow. And then I also want to swatch it next to this shade Cyborg, I think it is. So this will be Anastasia on the top. I was expecting these to be a lot similar, but I feel like the Anastasia one has a little bit of like pink and purple in there, whereas the ColourPop one is more of a true silver. I think they're both beautiful. I like the formula though, like texture-wise, of the ColourPop one better. I feel like it's a lot more buttery and smooth. So I just wanted to show you guys those two next to each other because I've been obsessed with this palette lately. So I had a couple of people messaging me about that saying, oh, the Anastasia Sultry palette has a silver in it too, but they're definitely not the same or similar. So that's just my little opinion on that. But first impression of this, I really love the packaging. I really like the color story. It's just the metallics I don't really feel do it enough for me. I really like the mattes in this palette. And then before we move on, I just want to show you guys these next to the previous Anastasia palette. So this is going to be the Sultry palette, and then this will be the Soft Glam palette. I do feel like if you have this palette, you really don't need this palette, but I feel like this one is even more like natural than this one. So this is going to be the Soft Glam palette. And then we have the Modern Renaissance palette, which very, very different, not even close to the same color story. Do they have similar shades? Definitely, but they're not even close to the same color story. And then we also have the Norvina palette, which the Norvina palette is probably my least favorite of all of them. I've never really loved every single look that I've done when using this palette, Whereas with the Soft Glam and the Modern Renaissance, I can make looks that I genuinely love out of those palettes. It's just this one just never really does it for me. I still feel like this one is very different than all the original ones. I feel like it's most similar to the Norvina palette as far as like tone wise. It's more like cool tone and it's just very natural, but I still feel like it's a beautiful color story. I really like the pop of like the coral pink in there. I really like that. A lot of people are saying it's very similar to the Soft Glam, but I don't think that at all. I feel like if you have Soft Glam, you really don't need this palette, but if you like more cool tones, this would definitely be a beautiful palette. It's just the metallics. The metallics just aren't really doing it for me, but the one thing that I love the most about the Sultry palette is definitely the packaging. The packaging is so much better on this palette. Even taking away like the sparkles, just not having that like felt material, I love so much more. So my first impression is like 50-50 on the Sultry palette. Alright, so I just jumped off into my foundation, concealer, and loose powder. Now I'm going to go in with this Smashbox angled powder brush and just set my under eyes with a brightening powder. So I'm just taking my Wet n Wild contouring palette and just setting. Oh, this fits like perfectly into the under eye area and then like around the nose. These are super soft. Well, this is super soft, I should say. I really like how the handles have like little divots in them so you know exactly where to hold it. It's so much more comfortable on the hand, at least to me. Oh, so I really like this. That one I really like, so let's try some more of these. So now I'm going to take the Smashbox Buildable Cheek Brush. I'm going to try to do contour, bronzer, and blush with this. So I'm going to take my Tantastic Bronzer from Marc Jacobs and just contour. I feel like this is going to be better for blush because I like a more concentrated contour. We're going to try to do all of them with this one brush. This is super soft. I really like the shape. I really like the handle again. I think that's so genius of them to do. I actually watched Tati's video on these brushes before I decided which ones that I wanted to purchase. There was one more that I wanted to get, but it was like meant for a foundation brush and she really liked it for like dusting away her powder and I just couldn't really justify spending $20-something on just a brush that I would use for that. So I decided not to get that one. So I'm not really loving this for contour. I feel like, again, I will love this more for like blush and bronzer just because it's not giving me the intensity that I want. It's given like a really nice flush bronze, which I feel like for daytime would be really beautiful. All right, so that's it for contour. Now I'm going to take my bronzer. I'm going to use my favorite one. This is the Hourglass Ambient Lighting. Oh no, we're not. Oh my god, I forgot. Alright, so now we're going to bust into this bad boy. Like the packaging on this is everything. You're going to see like your fingerprints on it a lot though, so that's the only kind of downfall of it. So this is what the inside of it looks like. I think it looks absolutely beautiful. So now I'm going to take the bronzer shade in this. Oh yeah, it does have the shade. So this is going to be Filter Bronze Light. I'm just going to take this right on this brush here. This brush is really like perfect for this because you could fit the brush right in there. That's the only thing that I don't really love about palettes, especially when they're so close together. But this brush fits like perfect in there. Because if I were to use my typical bronzer brush with this, there's no way it would fit because it's massive. Like this is my bronzer brush that I usually use. There's no way I'd be able to get a precise like amount of the product on there. But with this brush, it's like perfect. I'm really liking this brush too. Like it's super soft. I think shade wise, I prefer the shade Luminous Bronze Light, but I feel like this is going to be more ideal for me for when I'm a lot more fair. Like I'm still decently tan. I'm not like crazy tan at the moment, but I feel like when I get more fair, like the peak of the winter, this will be a perfect bronzer for me. All right, so now I'm going to just dust off the powder. I'm going to go in with this shade right here. The only thing that I don't love about these marble effect blushes and bronzers is sometimes there's a lot of the highlight in there and not as much as the blush shade, you know what I mean? Like with mine right now, I feel like there's a lot more of the highlight. So I feel like I'm not going to get as blushy as I personally like to. And I feel like I have to use a lot of the product at the moment. Maybe as I get down in the pan, but I see, like you could see right here, where it's looking really highlighty and not as blushy as I'd like to, and I feel like that's going to draw more attention to the texture on my face. So that's not something I really love about the marble in this. Like that's the only downfall, is they're not the same in all of them. Like there's so much more blush in this one versus this one. And being that this is, I think, a metallic blush, yeah, this is the Strobe Blush in Euphoric Fusion, so I'm getting a lot more highlight than I am getting blush. So I'm not loving that so much. So now let me take this Smashbox Precise highlighting brush. I really love the shapes on these. I feel like they're just designed so nicely. And then I'm going to take the highlight shade. What's the shade in this? The Strobe Powder and Euphoric Strobe Light, I think. These aren't really the most ideal for reading the names and stuff. So let's see how this looks as a highlight. This is more of like a very subtle highlight. I feel like this would be very daytime appropriate. I'm just overall not loving how my cheeks look from that blush though. Like there's so much like glow. Alright, so I'm not really loving that brush and I'm not really like living and dying over that highlight, but if you're looking for something very subtle, I feel like that would be very beautiful. So I'm going to take the sheer powder brush. Like I love the way that these are designed. They just like fit perfectly on the face, and this one's like the softest of all of them. So I'm going to take these two shades. I'm just going to kind of mix these together because I feel like they're both like finishing powders. And then I'm just going to dust this right along the perimeters of my face. I don't want to be like super lit. I think this one's more of like a highlighting powder and then this one's more of the finishing powder, but I want to just mix them because of the size of this brush. Like that's the only downfall with things like these, is if you use bigger brushes, you're going to have to mix the products. This is like one of those products. It doesn't do a ton, but it gives you like that kiss of glow. It's just a really beautiful powder. I really love these. Like you could dust these all over your face and it just gives you like that lit from within type of look. So that's going to be everything for this palette. My first impression of it was I honestly don't love it. And for $80, I feel like I really have to love it. I honestly think I'm going to like the other palette better because it just has a more beautiful color scheme to me. I like the fact that this has like the permanent colors in it, but if I don't love all of them, it's not worth it to me. Like that blush was a big letdown for me. Like I had to use a lot of it. I don't really love the highlighter because it's not like my typical like bam in your face. I really like these three products here, but 3 out of 6 for $80 is not worth it to me. And the other thing with these, like the value on them, I saw a breakdown on, I think it was Beauty Deals BFF. She did a breakdown of these and like the value on this isn't really that great. So I feel like if you don't love everything in there, it's not really worth it. That's just my natural first impression of it. I'm so disappointed though because you guys know that I love Hourglass. I feel like my skin looks beautiful. Like it is very beautiful. It's very just natural glow vibes. It's just I don't love everything in this. So I don't know if I'm going to keep this or not. I'm going to have to keep playing with it. It's just that blush was the biggest letdown. Like I feel like it almost like brings attention to the texture of my skin, but it doesn't emphasize it. You know what I mean? Like I don't feel like you guys can really see it. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. But as of right now, like I don't love this, which is surprising because I love everything Hourglass. It's just, I think the biggest thing for me is just the fact that it's $80 and I don't love everything in there. And I do feel like I'll love the other one even more. So that's just my first impression of it. I'm not really sure what I'm going to do with it yet, but I think I am going to like the Ambient Edit one better just because I feel like it's going to give me more for using less amount of product, and that's what I typically like. Like I don't like to have to keep going into a product and building and building and building because I feel like I'm using a ton of product to get the results that I would with something else, you know what I mean? So that's just my natural first impression of that. Alright, so I just did my brows off camera, clearly, and now I'm going to go in with my eyeliner really quick, then I'm going to dip back into the Sultry palette. So I'm just taking my Ardency in Monster liner. I'm going to take this to like the inner, probably third. Just looking at my face in the viewfinder, I actually really like how my skin looks. Like my skin looks really nice. It looks very glowy and just beautiful. So I'm really curious to see how I like it when I spray everything. I don't know, I'm just so undecided about that Hourglass palette. Let me know what you guys think. So I'm going to take the shade Dystopian. I hope I'm saying that right. And I'm just going to focus this right on the outer like half of my eye. And then I'm going to take my R39 and I'm going to dip in the shade Bloom. I just love this color, and then I want to blend it out under here with that shade. These mattes blend so easy. Like I really love the mattes in this palette. It's just the metallics, god dang it. I hope the other ones work better for me. Like they don't look bad. It's just for almost a $50 eyeshadow palette. I just really want to like love the formula of them. And I noticed with the Norvina palette too, it's like they don't really last that long. So I'm curious to see how these last as well. If I wear this for a long time today, I'll leave like an update on how the shadows wear throughout the day. So now I'm just going to throw some mascara on and we're going to be trying out some new lashes today. I think they're going to be way more dramatic than I want to look today because I don't have liner on or anything. And then we'll go in with these Hawaiian lashes. So these are in the style Charm, and I paid I think $12.95. I have a code with them. It's Brit Clarke 15 if you guys want 15% off. It's not like an affiliate code or anything like that. It's just like their way to track who comes from my account, I guess. I don't fucking know. But I don't earn any commission or anything off of it. But I thought these were so beautiful. And I think they're on sale now for like $10.95. So even less for 3D mink lashes. And they're just super fluttery. I'm definitely going to have to trim these down, but they're just beautiful looking lashes. These are definitely not like daytime appropriate lashes, at least for me. All right, so these are definitely more dramatic than I was expecting them to be. I think they're beautiful. It's just they're so thick on the band that I definitely have to put like a black line or else they're gonna look crazy. All right, so I just got my lashes and liner on. Oh my God, what a process, because these are so thick and fluffy. It was such a bitch to get that liner on, so I would definitely recommend put the liner on before, but I feel like they look so much better with the liner on. They don't look as completely crazy, but they're definitely not like daytime appropriate lashes, at least for me. I would wear these at night for sure. I think they're beautiful, and I love how everything else looks so much more now. So I'm going to now jump to my lips. So I'm going to take that Uncuffed liquid lipstick from Fenty Beauty. The packaging on this is everything. Like, I love the packaging. If you're somebody that stores your liquid lipsticks though, I mean, this will obviously be a bitch to store it, but I personally would showcase a packaging like this. So this is what the applicator looks like. It's super different, and I know a lot of people really like it. It's just I'm not used to it yet. So I'm going to just try to line my lips first and then go in and fill in. So wish me luck again. So that went way better than it did the first time. The first time that I used it, I tried to use this tip by itself to outline, but I don't feel like you have to. I feel like with this applicator, you could just use it as like the applicator looks like you would use it, just like as a normal lipstick, because it does have that little slant there. This is such a beautiful color, and I think it complements this look perfectly. So I'm going to let this dry down a little bit. I like that the formula is like one swipe application. It's really lightweight on the lips, and this lasts all fucking day. I wore this as I was filming a wedding the other night, and I didn't have to reapply at all. So I'm going to let this dry down a little bit, and then I want to top it off with this Shine a Light lip gloss from Marc Jacobs. Again, the packaging is everything. Like, they're killing it with the packaging game lately. So let this dry down a little bit more. And then again, I know that I love this formula, so let's just go in and go right in the center. Like, that's so beautiful. I've been obsessed with the Fenty Beauty Diamond Milk lip gloss lately. But this one's totally different. That's so beautiful. It's got like a gold tint to it, and then kind of like pink reflex in it. Yes, bitch, I'm totally into that. I love it. I love this formula for lip gloss. My current favorite lip gloss is definitely the Fenty Beauty lip gloss, but this is also one of my favorite, and then also the Buxom ones. But this is like top 3, I would say, for my favorite lip gloss formula. All right, so that's going to be everything. So let me give you a quick rundown yet again if you guys didn't get it the first time around. So starting off with the Sultry palette. So initial first impressions, I'm like 50-50 on it. I think the packaging is beautiful. I really like how this eye look came out. I feel like it's a really beautiful, like, natural, if you're looking for just a natural what can kick it up a notch at nighttime, I feel like this is a beautiful palette, and I feel like you can really get those sultry looks out of it, especially like with the blacks and the grays. Like, this is just very cool tone. That's why I was also really gravitated towards it, because I don't have a lot of cool tones in my collection. So I wish the metallics were a little bit better, but I'm curious to see how this wears throughout the day. But I think this look looks beautiful, especially once I got those lashes on and everything. I think it looks beautiful. So I'm curious to try this out more. Let me know what you guys thought in the comment section of that. All right, so the next thing that we'll talk about is the Hourglass palette. So I'm very 50-50 on this right now, just because I feel like my skin looks beautiful. I feel like this is a beautiful palette, but I don't know if it's worth $80. That's like my biggest hang up with it, because I love everything in here except for this blush for the most part. I think I would use everything, but it's just, is it worth $80 to me? That's where I'm kind of like, eh. I feel like the Ambient Edit palette will be a better palette for me, because I like the tones in that a little bit better. I mainly like this one because it has the permanent shades in here, so I won't feel bad using it later if I just go in and use this blush, where I know you could still get that blush, you know what I mean? Whereas like the Ambient Edit palette, those are all custom shades to that palette. So that's where I was more leaning towards this one, but I feel like I'm going to personally like the other one better. So I do think I'm going to still get that palette. It's just with this one, like, I love how it has like those two like light diffuser shades or like the setting shades. I really like those. I think the highlighter is really beautiful for daytime, but for a look like this, I definitely want to add more highlight to my face right now. I think the bronzer is beautiful. I think it's going to be really nice for me when I'm a lot more fair. The blushes are beautiful. It's just this one here, I wish it had more of the blush tone in it versus the metallic tone in it. Like, it has a lot of highlighter in that shade, so I feel like I didn't get the blushiness that I like. Like, I like a lot of blush, and I don't feel like that really did it for me. So my initial first impression of this, I'm really 50-50 on it. But do I think it's worth $80? I would not say it's worth $80, at least to me. I feel like if you're more fair in skin tone, you will like this a lot more. Like, I'm not quite at my fairest yet. I feel like I'll like this a lot more as I get fair. So I probably will keep this. It's just, if you're a darker complexion than I am right now, I do not think this is worth it. I still feel like my skin looks absolutely gorgeous, like thanks to Beauty Bakery's foundation. But on top of that, I think my skin itself looks gorgeous. I feel like it has that really like lit from within type of glow to it. So I feel like it's worth it, but $80 I think is pushing it for me for this palette. Now let's talk about these brushes. So my first impression of these brushes was I really like them. I kind of wish that I got more of them, but I feel like I got the ones that I would really use. My least favorite was the Precise highlighting brush. I actually want to use this right now to highlight my face a little bit more because I do want a little bit more glow to my skin right now because we are pretty dramatic with the makeup right now. So let me take out my Hourglass Metallic Strobing Palette. This is my favorite. And then let's see if we like this better for precise application. Like, it's super precise. That's one thing I do really like about it is how precise you can get it. It's just, I think for me right now is I'm so used to a fluffy brush. That's where I'm kind of like, oh, this is just weird. But this gets super precise. Like, I could get right on the top of that cheekbone. Like, look how beautiful that is. I just love this highlighter. It's so good. This is the only one that I wasn't really in love with, but I feel like I can fall in love with this because of how precise of an application I can get, because I can be known for getting my highlight just a little bit too far down off the top of my cheekbone because of the fluffy brush. So I feel like this will help me really target the areas that I should be highlighting. So I feel like I'm going to like this. I'm going to keep all of them because I really do like them. Do I feel like you need all four? No. My favorite thing about these is the unique shapes of them, and then I really love how it has the indents for your fingers where to hold the brush. Like, it even has them down here if you want like a more airbrushed finish, I guess you could say. But this one was definitely my favorite. This was the buildable cheek brush. But I think this one was definitely the softest. I just feel like this one you could do more with it. Like, you could wipe away your baking, you could do your contour if you want like a more natural contour. You could do your bronzer, your blush, you could even do highlight with it. Like, you could do so much with this brush. This reminds me a lot of like my Sephora 55 brush, except I like this one more than that. This was the sheer powder brush. This would be a beautiful blush brush if you have a really pigmented blush, or just like dusting away all your powder, or how I used it with that Hourglass palette, like just dusting those just like veil setting powders on your face. These are just beautiful brushes. I really love how they're designed. I feel like they're very unique. So I'm very happy to have these. These were like the #1 in this video, I think. I definitely would recommend these because they're super soft. They apply everything beautifully. Like, I feel like everything looks just beautiful right now. The next thing will be these Hawaiian lashes. I think they're beautiful, but do I think they're daytime appropriate? Probably not. But for the price of them, they remind me honestly a lot of the Baddie B lashes. Like, the thickness of them and like how fluffy they are, the design of them. They remind me a lot of those. The packaging's not my favorite. I've talked about that on my Insta story, but I think they look beautiful on this look right now. I feel like they really tied everything together. So I feel like for the price, they're definitely worth it. Like, especially if they're now 10 bucks. And then again, I use the style Charm. So these to me were a really nice product as well. Next thing will be the Fenty Beauty Stunna Lip Paint. I really like this. I think the color is beautiful. The application was so much easier this time. I love how it's like a super thin formula, but it's not crazy drying either. So this is definitely a hit product for me. I really want to get the shade Unveil, I think it is. It's like the brownie tone one. I really want to get that one as well, so I might get that actually during the VIB sale now that I know that I like that formula. So that's that for that lip paint. And then the last thing is the Marc Jacobs Lip Lacquer. These are, again, some of my favorites. Do I think it's like the most long-lasting formula? No, because I feel like I already need to add a little bit more. It's not like my favorite formula of all time. The Fenty Beauty is where it's at for me. I love those gloss bombs. But I think this is beautiful. It's super unique. And again, I love the packaging. Like, I feel like packaging all around has been fire. So I think that's it for this like first impression slash get ready with me. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you guys do like these videos, make sure you guys hit that thumbs up or down. That way I know what you guys like to see. And that's going to be everything. So I hope to see you guys in my next one. Peace!